Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Respected Chair, Madam Moderator, Honorable Judges, it's certainly an honor to be here presenting before those who administer justice in this country. As my slide suggests, I will be talking about terrorism and militancy in Pakistan. This is a topic that has occupied my time for the last 6 years. I'm trying to find a way out of it, but it's not that easy. Terrorism needs to end in the country. How do we fight terrorism in Pakistan today? Today we have large-scale military operations in Quetta. We have civil armed forces, the Rangers deployed in Karachi. We have the FC deployed in Balochistan. We have IBOs, intelligence-based operations all throughout the country, especially in Punjab. And we have military courts, non-judicially trained or non-legally trained individuals, military staff who are adjudicating matters of life and death for people. That is how today Pakistan is fighting terrorism or militancy. How did we get here? That's what I want to look at today. Now, in the time that I've been looking at terrorism in Pakistan, processing it, I've tried to find a way of how I can easily understand and express and present our legal response as a state to this menace. And that's what I'll be trying to look at when I look at the issue of the spectrum of violence. And finally, some recommendations that I would want to give. And terrorism is such a massive subject that 15 minutes or 20 minutes is certainly not enough for it. But I'll be trying to look at some of the out-of-the-box solutions. Because the same thinking that got us to this point is not going to get us out of this ditch that we find ourselves in. So I'm not going to take any more time. I want to begin by the story that got us to this point. So terrorism and militancy in Pakistan. These are just some statistics. I don't think you can see the stats from there, but as you can see, 2009 onwards. Now the large figure in 2009, that is basically terrorists or militants that were killed, their operations going on. But it's really 2011, 12, 13 that were the most deadliest for civilians and law enforcement personnel. So 3,000 plus people dying in a year just from terrorist attacks. And thankfully we see a downward trajectory after that. Sectarian violence in Pakistan. You can see for yourself that 2010, 11, 12, 13 were some of the most bloodiest years that we had. There was also the issue in the 90s where sectarian violence was certainly at a level. Now let's disaggregate and look at incidents of terrorism in Pakistan. We see a spike during the mid-90s. The Anti-Terrorism Act was enacted during that period. We saw a lull after that. There was a shift from our focus on India to Afghanistan. There was a military takeover. Usually these factors help contribute towards a certain approach, and terrorism does go down a bit. But then we saw a very, very sudden rise, and that's what we call the modern form of terrorism that we saw or have been witnessing in Pakistan the past few decades, decade and a half. Very quickly, let's look at the modus operandi of terrorists. So in the mid-90s, what we had was assassinations and armed assault, target killing, etc. Karachi's been a witness to this itself. But then later on, and what we've been seeing in the news on a daily basis at times, has been that bombings and explosions have been the tool used primarily. That was what caused the most casualties in association with, of course, armed assault, which is still being done. But terrorists or miscreants in society really realize that you can cause a lot more damage by a bomb than you need to send people in bodies and stuff. Now, during that entire period,